think that there's not a clear understanding of exactly what our goal is and how it's working. So it's just basically clarification of the intent. George, is that?
If he doesn't show up, I'm prepared to discuss it.
Do you want to do it now then?
I'd rather he be here just in case you have specific questions, but if not, I will address it.
We'll go down to the next issue, municipality fees for services and permitting.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up something that I hope we can come to a little bit better and bring it on just for the purposes of not costing the district so much, and maybe actually in the long run not costing the municipality. It was brought to my attention by one of the principals in Eagle River in an elementary school, where they were wanting to relocate, not relocate, but add a electrical outlet on their stage so that they didn't have to have all kinds of cords and extension cords and wires and things like that that were basically going across the stage in order to use certain equipment. It was kind of becoming more of a safety issue, a hazard for kids tripping. And so anyway, she looked into having a outlet basically put into the floor of the stage. And one of the district's electricians came out and took a look at that and figured that, you know, it'd take just a certain amount of wire, another outlet, and maybe an hour to 2 hours worth of work, and they would be tying into a outlet that was right next to the stage but off to the side. And so he figured maybe $100, $150 to do this particular project, but they have to, in order to do the project, they have to permit, and that's a $350 charge. So it obviously became not very cost effective in terms of trying to do something that really is more of a safety issue for the kids at the school. But it kind of, I think, draws attention to the fact that there's got to be a way for us to have some kind of waiver for certain situations like that. And it's interesting to me that we have professional electricians that work for the district who are journeyman electricians, certified, licensed, whatever you want to call it, yet we have to have the municipalities come out and say, oh yes, you've done the correct thing here, your work is approved. So it just seems to me that there's a way for us to work through these kinds of little things, because I think it is a little thing. But in the long run, you know, it manages to, it could definitely save the district money. It certainly would save the municipality some in having to send out an inspector all the time. I mean, we're a governmental entity that has the same requirements in terms of the professionalism and the licensing of our employees, just like the municipality does. So it seems really redundant that the district has to comply. And I don't mean probably not to comply, because obviously we want to comply with rules, but there are certainly rules that may be a little overkill, and this seems to be a good example of one of those.
Well, I had a conversation with the same principal on the same electrical outlet.
And what was your thoughts?
Well, we struggle within the city to have governmental services pay for itself. And as such, we have increased fees. And those fees, we don't exempt municipal government from the fees either. For instance, I'm now dealing with a disgruntled Eagle River Parks and Rec board because there's some fees for management of the Eagle River Town Center and the MAC Center that have gone up. IGCs have gone up. So what I'd like to do is have George basically respond on why fees have gone up in general, permitting, and two, our whole idea, our goal there of making that department self-sufficient. And it's in deficit right now.
And if I could, Ms. Johnson wanted to say something. Do you want to move
Actually,
to?
similar, but additional question to George. It's my understanding that the administration is reviewing Fund 181 and how we are going to approach it. And this is a more global conversation, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
No.
Okay. Ms. Kennedy, and then let's.
My point is that we seem to have a government entity that says that their certified electrician is better than the other governmental entity certified electrician. And so we have to have this process where somebody comes out to approve somebody else's work. And that's part of what's in consideration here, I think. It's not necessarily about the fact that there's a $350 permitting fee. It's, to a certain extent, it's whether or not that's really even needs to be a requirement. So maybe both of those issues.
Okay, thank you. My name is George Michaelis, and I'm the municipal manager for municipality. Well, first of all, I think we all need to be clear. It makes no difference whether you're a governmental electrical person, certified, licensed, duly licensed, or not. The bottom line is you could make the argument for a private enterprise building where they have contractors that come in that are certified electricians. What the code requires is that, number one, there has to be a permit, and the permit is required by the electrical code. It also says in there that when you are working on these type of facilities, there has to be an inspection done to make sure that the proper procedures are being followed. It makes no difference what category of electrician you are. Governmental electrician, private electrician, that has nothing to do whatsoever with it. It has to do with public safety, which the Building Safety Division is responsible for. And part of that requirement is going through a duly processed permit. And then number two is to make sure that it was properly installed for the safety of not just kids, but in a public building, for another building, a private building, or another public building, for the safety of the folks that basically inhabit it. Now, the question was raised, well, why do we need to charge a fee? Well, the reason that we charge a fee, also by code, that particular organization is basically not tax supported as far as that particular piece of the operation. Just like food service and the school district is not tax supported. So they have to rely on revenues generated to be able to perform the function. And that's why there is a permit fee, and that's why, of course, there is a fee associated with any inspection relevant to that particular permit.
Understand the idea of wanting to inspect things, and the district does have inspectors. Mr. Abbott can help me out on some of this too. But again, when you're looking at a project that is basically costing less than the cost of the permit, is kind of like a nickel and diming, of the organization. That is just added expense to us. That really, you wonder really what the value, what value are you getting out of that particular inspection when it's such a minor project to begin with, and certainly it doesn't cost $350 to send somebody out to check an outlet. So maybe there's even a possibility of a graduated fee of some sort, or a certain value of the project itself. But it seems to me that this is one of those opportunities, to help make things a little more balanced, and certainly to help save money in the long run. Anyway, I think it's worth the conversation.
And I think you bring up a good point, so does Mr. Michaelis. But I think the larger point here is maybe our fees. And one of the things you find out is, government has the greatest number of exemptions. And so if we're feeling this as a school district, you can imagine what they're feeling on the private sector. So probably this is a more global, I think one of the worst things we can do is give the school districts exemption and have it still be this endemic problem in the private sector. But I personally feel like you're saying.
Mr. Abbott, did you want to comment on whether or not we have inspectors on staff at the district as well?
Mr. Michaelis described it correctly. We have licensed electricians that are licensed to perform electrical work as similar to the licensing that electrical contractors would have, and similar to the licenses that are held by the electrical inspectors that the municipality has.
Well, I don't want to exempt us personally from the same requirements that everybody else. I also don't want us to have higher requirements and things like this. I am encouraged by the hearing that you're then taking another look at the fees and how this is done. Whether you're a private person or a school district, being charged $300 to inspect an electric outlet does sound high. And, you know, it's kind of stuff where if we were doing it, we'd be hearing we need to outsource it because we're obviously it's too inefficient to do an inspection. So, you know, that's just a lot of money for somebody for an hour's worth of work.
I just say I agree with Jeff. I think the, you know, I hear that from constituents, you know, when you're doing, you know, something around your house and you go in to get something, and basically it's not any different than if you were a homeowner and you know, want to follow all the rules and go get permitted and everything, you write the same check. And so it's not unusual to have the permit cost. In fact, if it's a self-performed type work, exceed the cost of the work being done. And it's kind of goofy. I agree with you, but I would object to seeing the city kind of exempt itself from something that's painful and you know, something that's basically leveled out across the city to the homeowners and everybody else.
The point that I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood, and Mr. Burridge hit on it partially, is that it's not $350 for, in this particular case, so that we're talking about for the inspection. It's the permitting, the time associated with the permitting, and the inspection.
This motion, and we'll have to move on the agenda just to let people know.
It would just seem to me that this is a topic of coordinating our services, which people want us to do. And it seems that this is something that we can make work better. It doesn't seem to be very coordinated.
Any other comments?
Just one more. This is a section that is self-supporting, and right now it doesn't make the revenue to run itself. There's a deficit in this one department. So when you think about exemptions or lowering fees, you've got to think of some other way to pay for it. Then caution.
Okay. Appreciate it. The mayor's joined us now.